Welcome to the Healers Café, the #1 show for medical practitioners and holistic healers to have heart-to-heart conversations about their day-to-day lives while sharing their expertise for improving your health and wellness. Welcome to the Healers Café. Today I have with me Randy Lyman. He's a purpose-driven leader, is a physicist and exited founder who has redefined what it means to create purpose-driven success in the building and the growth of his multiple 8-figure companies. Randy combines decades of experience in business with a deep commitment to fostering emotional intelligence and spiritual grounding. He has a book that just came out, The Third Element, makes these complex concepts accessible and actually actionable. So I'm going to leave it with that. Welcome to our spontaneous discussion. And I was going to say, why don't we start with what started you into this entrepreneurship and unusual a little bit because you're combining, it looks like service and spirituality and so-called financial success, which are not always seen all together. So why don't we start? What was your journey and how did you get here?
Certainly. Well, wonderful to be here, Manon. Thank you for having me on. As far as my journey goes, my spiritual journey started several years after I started as an entrepreneur. I started as an entrepreneur in my garage in 1982 with $600 while I was going to college. And several years later, in 1989, I had multiple, at the time, 7-figure businesses and was very successful. I was working hard and trying as hard to educate myself and be smart. And by most means, I was successful, but I wasn't happy and I wasn't feeling fulfilled. And at that time, at the age of 28 in 1989, I met a woman by the name of Maria, who I spent 3 years with, and she introduced me to the spiritual, emotional side of life, that unseen part of life that many of us ignore. I ignored for many years. And once my eyes were open to that, I was so intrigued. And the last 35 years of my life have been focused on spiritual growth and emotional healing. So I took a big turn, 180-degree turn at the age of 28 and started focusing on how could I grow within myself and my connection with all that is. And I still continued to educate myself and work hard, but the emotional spiritual component brought me so much more success in business, in my personal relationships, and in my health.
Mhm. So what were what are the businesses that you're currently running? Like what nature, what are they?
Well, currently I'm only writing as an author and doing coaching, personal and corporate coaching.
Okay.
But in the past, I was involved in automotive and truck differential repair, and then parts distribution, and eventually in parts manufacturing and distribution. I sold all that 10 years ago. And then 4 years ago, I decided to write a book about all my experiences. And it took 4 years to make it an easy read that made sense where people could make good use of the information. It wasn't easy to do, but it was all based on my experience. And now I'm really proud of the way the books turned out. I had a good editor, and that helped a lot. Um,
Yeah. And so what would you say, like what was the shift and how could you what did you see in your day-to-day running these businesses when you had sort of the shift of perspective? What
well,
was different?
first, Well, first, I became aware of my anger and the emotions underneath of frustration and disappointment that was covered up by anger.
Uh-huh.
And I was able to work through the layers of that by experiencing that pain at the deepest level. And now it sounds crazy, but to me, the only way to release our old emotional wounds is to find a way to feel them completely in real time today, feel the emotion, cry the tears, scream, journal, breathe, whatever it takes to move that energy. And then once the energy has been released from our through our body, from our beingness, then our world changes. So I had a few large epiphanies, and those epiphanies helped me make the connection as a physicist, as a scientist, between cause and effect. So when I had the emotional release, then my physical world of my relationships got better. And after seeing that a few times and making the connection, it really intrigued me. And that's where my focus was. After I kind of figured that out, I just continued to dive into that connection.
Yeah, that's interesting. So do you think that the issue for a lot of the CEOs and people who run their companies, I mean, there's a lot of fear, like, oh, I don't want to talk to my boss, or, a lot of people say many of the CEOs are psychopaths. They certainly don't have a great general reputation. Of course, there's lots of exceptions, but what is it what do they do in general? I mean, I'm asking you to really generalize here, but what is the issue and how do we change that culture? How does that happen? Like I don't know if my question's clear enough for you.
Your question is clear. There's a few questions in there, but they're great questions. So first of all, I had to realize that, and I had kind of insight into we're more than just our mind and our body. We are spiritual beings on a human path playing this game of life.
Right,
And so if we only understand two of the three categories that everything fits into, everything in the universe fits into the categories, one of the three, thoughts and information, our body and the physical world, and our emotions. So we focus on being intelligent and working hard, and we're going to ignore our emotions. And in doing that, any old wounding that we have gets pushed down. But the law of attraction, which co-creates our reality every moment of every day, the law of attraction gives us the gift of irritations to remind us of what we have to feel and release. So I'm going to say that again, the irritations of people cutting us off in traffic, somebody being rude to us, somebody lying to us or stealing from us. Those are all gifts if we are able to recognize the gift within the irritation, and then we can heal the underlying wound. So if I go back to who I was 35 years ago, I was not asking people to do things. I was demanding people do what needed to be done for the business to succeed. Once I understood myself and got my own issues out of the way, and I understand other people, then I learned to lead from a place of service to those who I led and a place of vulnerability. And let me explain. So service means I'm here to serve the group that I lead. If they feel like I'm here to be served, they don't give a damn about me. They only care about themselves, and that's okay. That's human nature. So once they realize I'm here to help them succeed, they're on my side.
right.
And when I show up and I'm willing to admit when I'm wrong, always share the glory. If things work well, I give credit to everybody else. I never take credit for the success. I always take credit for and the blame, excuse me. I always take the blame for anything that goes wrong so that people feel safe. People know that I'm there to support them and help them win. And when they feel safe, they get along better. They don't show up with their guard all protected.
Right.
And they know that I'm there to help them succeed, then they're going to get behind my ideas. And when my ideas are a culmination of the whole entire group's ideas, I'm not saying I always do things their way, but I always ask for input. Now we're doing this together. So they feel that they're contributing to the cause. They feel that they're acknowledged for who they are. They feel like they belong to the group. And they know that myself as a leader, I'm going to help them succeed. They show up 100% and they're behind the mission and they're making things happen. And as leaders, for me anyway, it was very, very scary to be vulnerable. It was scary to be compassionate. It was scary to admit that I didn't know everything because I thought that I would lose control. It turns out the opposite's true.
Mm. Yeah, and I think that what losing control is one of the pivotal things is people have this misunderstanding that uh, control doesn't come from being inauthentic in the sense of, pushing your way through a system. It's more like the more you're leveling the playing field, the more you're accepting of others, encouraging, getting the bigger focus in focus. um, I think that that changes. You don't you go more into trust. I only know it from a medical point of view. The trusting, for healing, you have to kind of shift the idea of controlling your body to trusting its capacity to do well. So it's interesting that you're mentioning that in business. Yeah. Hmm.
Well, we have to have the trust, but if I go to science and engineering, power means the ability to get work done.
Right.
And so if I'm a leader, that means I can't get the work done by myself. I have to involve other people.
Yeah.
And when I'm able to get the best from the group, then that gives me power, not from a place of ego, but from a place of being able to accomplish. If my
Right.
power only comes from my title, then that's limited by the people who respond from a place of fear. But if my
Yeah.
power comes from a place of cooperation and through the group and through the group, and coordination of everyone, coordination and cooperation of the group, now my power is increased. And it's not about my ego and me being right or winning or taking the credit. It's about accomplishing what we need to accomplish. And so when I shift to the thought of my power comes from the involvement of the group and the buy-in from the group and how happy everybody is to succeed,
Mhm.
it's a whole paradigm shift.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, interesting. And do you find that in that model, um, that like where do you put so-called financial incentives? Because some people say, oh, that's what makes all the difference. My hunch is it's not true. So what is your experience with that? And how do you
First,
work with that?
first of all, my experience is that uh, your hunch is that it's not all about compensation. It's absolutely not all about compensation. There's three things people need before compensation. They need to be acknowledged for who they are as an individual, their skill sets, their personality, that they're contributing. Then they need to feel like they're contributing because many people, their lives don't necessarily have meaning. And when they feel like they're contributing at work, that gives their life meaning. That makes them feel better about themselves. And then third, they need to feel like they belong to the group. So if I can acknowledge people for who they are on a more personal level, that doesn't give up my strength or my power or my respect. I can help people feel like they're contributing. And that's another form of acknowledgement, but it's different than acknowledging them as an individual. So I can
Mhm,
help them feel like they're contributing. That doesn't cost me a thing.
mhm,
And then I can help them feel like they belong to the group by the way I interact with them, by the way I promote interactions, by the mood and the environment that I, as a leader, create and nurture. So those three things cost the business nothing. And they're so much more important than the money. Now, I've set up incentive-based commission programs. I did that for 20 plus years. I had different incentive-based programs, but they were not as effective as the personal touch. They were not as effective as my investment in time of interacting with people differently. That investment paid off because now when the group bonds and the group knows they listen to me, they feel like they're a part of the business and they're important. I don't have to babysit them. They show up and they do their work and they enjoy their work. And now I got time back. So yes, I had to invest time to get there, but the return on investment of my time was huge.
No, it makes sense. Now, what do you do with, or what is your philosophy towards people? Because, in a small team to start with, often people have to wear several hats because, as an owner or business operator, you can't always have all the people there that, the business requires. So at least I'll explain how I do it, but I like who's better at writing, who's better at on the phone, who's better, doing the technology, who's better at this. I mean, you pick people that at least are present themselves as liking what they are good at. That helps. But when you're doing this multi-hat start off, which is what a lot of us, start with, how do you get the jobs that no one's no one wants to do because they don't identify with it. I mean, they don't like it, or they don't, I think it's different if they think they're not good and that's a mistake. That is, you can counsel them into, you've actually done that wonderfully. But if they really don't want something, how do you work with that in a small team? I don't know if you've had a small team.
Oh yeah, I started with just me in 1982. I've built 5 different businesses. I've had to wear multiple hats. So a couple things happen. One is everyone is kind of pushed, and we see who does. It comes in this multiple, one thing at a time. A scholar essence or personality type is one thing at a time. A king and a warrior can do 2 things at a time. An artisan does 5 things at a time. They're very good at that. So what I try and do is I cross train and I involve people. Hey, how'd you like to try this? And then I watch and I see, do they adapt? Do they enjoy adapting? If they do, then I take advantage of them enjoying adapting. If they don't adapt, then I have to have a conversation and really dig and listen. What jobs do they like to do and see if there's a fit? So something that's just natural and happens in any growth organization typically is turnover. It happens sometimes because the business grows to a level that's beyond where that person is comfortable. If a person doesn't want to work in a larger group of 6 or 10 or 20 people, or if the business becomes a little more professional, still personable, but if a little more professional, they don't necessarily want that. They like a little bit of chaos and they're comfortable in that. And the business grows beyond that, then they move on, and you learn to do that gracefully with respect. And then also, you just have people that don't fit, and you have to have turnover. As long as we're approaching those situations with caring and compassion and respect, then people understand. But we have to test the waters and see who likes to do different jobs and see what they like to do best. I've had some people that have been in 6 different positions in my companies because they like the variety. I have some people who do one job and that's all they want to do, and I let them do that job and they're happy. So it's a little bit of experimenting, and we can't be attached to that person in that position forever.
Right. Yeah, and I guess the more people feel that they're there for the whole purpose of it, for the end result, then it's easier to see the possibility of shifting when it's necessary. I at least my experience, the different hats that people have, we joke about it. Which hat are you sitting under right now? Um, because you have to have that kind of flexibility for, small entrepreneurial businesses for sure. So what, I mean, obviously you've just published this book. Do you want to maybe share, because I didn't get a chance to read it yet. What are the main things that people, or that you'd like people to understand as a takeaway from your experience?
Well, life is always a challenge, of course, but there's not as many rules as we're told. So let me just start with the 2 rules that God and the universe have for us. The first one is, when we respond to any situation from a place of love and caring, with a focus on there's going to be a good outcome to this, and I'm coming from a place of love and caring, I'm going to find a lasting solution sooner or later. And really, that's the only way we can find a lasting solution. We can't force solutions and have them last. So the first is love/good wins. And then the second is, God in the universe does not have expectations, does not judge us. All we have is the law of attraction, and the law of attraction mirrors the vibration of our thoughts, the vibration of our actions. I mean, our how we treat our body and the physical world around us, and the vibrations of our emotions. Now, our emotions are bigger than time and space, and that's the complication. And the third category, or what I refer to as the third element, is our emotions. So we all want to be smart, and we all work hard, and we want to feel good, but we try not to feel. We avoid our emotions. And it turns out the emotional part of our being is really the most powerful. So I explain the rules of the game. I explain that our thinking mind is never in the present moment. Emotions are bigger than time and space, and do not know time at all. But the only way we can experience our emotions, to release all that old unhealed energy that we hang on to subconsciously, is through our body in the present moment.
What would your life be like if you were pain-free? If you were one of the millions who suffer from chronic pain, the thought of just one day without it may seem impossible. This is often because conventional medicine tends to fall short in the treatment of pain, opting to prescribe pills or recommend surgery rather than getting to the root cause of the problem. But if you are suffering with emotional or physical pain, there is hope. Join the founder and CEO of Bowen College, Manon Bolliger, live online for your body-mind reboot. Learn how to listen to your symptoms and get to the root cause of your pain. Plus, be trained in basic Bowen therapy moves so that you can reboot your body for optimal health. You don't have to live in pain. You can heal. Stop the pain pill cycle by visiting www.yourbodymindreboot.com to learn more and to register.
So our mind cannot be in the present moment. It can guide us through a meditation, through a tapping exercise, through a breathing exercise, but ultimately we have to be in touch with our physical body in the present moment, set the intention, and be brave enough and willing enough to let the old emotions come through. Now in chapter 7, I talk about 14 different activities or exercises we can do to heal all emotions. But first I start with education and understanding. Then I share, along the way, I share several of my stories so people have some incentive, and it gives me credibility as a scientist and somebody who shares what I've gone through. People say, okay, this makes sense. So once they understand and they say, I'm willing to try it, then I take them through some exercises and show them how they can let go of some old emotional energy and create more space for love and happiness and success in their life. And that's kind of the book in a nutshell. So in this book, I share what's helped me have a better life. And everything I write about, I've experienced at least twice, and many things like 1,000 times or more. And when I rewrote this book over the last 4 years, I had to re-experience everything at a deeper level. So this comes from the perspective of a scientist, which I am, and from personal experience, and with a lot of proof that we could get into deeper later. But I'm 100% confident in what I share. And so what I share is the 2 rules to the game of life. And the first one is, when we respond to any situation from a place of love with an intent of a good outcome and wishing everybody well and seeing the lessons in the situation, then we'll find an answer. When we respond from a place of fear, we don't find lasting answers from a place of fear, only from a position or a place of love. First rule. Second rule is, everything that we experience in life is a reflection of us that's co-created by the law of attraction. So the law of attraction, kind of like a mechanism God's put in place for us here, does not judge us. It responds to us, but it does not judge us. It does not have expectations. It says, you think whatever you want to think, you do whatever you want to do, you feel whatever you feel, and I will reflect that back to you and create your world based on your thoughts, your actions, and your feelings. So I explain that, and I explain it down to the quantum level, and with some really fun examples that are easy enough to understand. It's not rocket science. Yeah. And so people say, okay, wait a minute, Randy, you're a logical guy. You shared your stories. You share what works for you, and you tell us why. Now that people have an understanding, then my hope is that they'll be willing to try some of the exercises I include in the book. In chapter 7, I have 14 different exercises: breathing, tapping, gratitude, journaling. Whatever works for somebody is fine. And so the idea is to help us get in touch with our body in the present moment, set the intent, and let the emotional energy flow through in a place that's at time and place that's safe, so that people can see, when I let this old pain go, my physical world improves. So that's kind of the book in a nutshell. And it's about 200 pages. It's a relatively easy read. Now, I think a lot of people will read it over and over again because there's some really deep concepts there that even I learn more from when I read it over. but it's
Yeah.
an easy read. It's a fun read. And my goal is to help people find success and hope and happiness.
Mm. So it sounds very intriguing. Yeah, definitely. What's your personal biggest aha? Like the obstacle that you got over that really impacted you the most?
Well, the biggest one was a wound that a family member said to me when I was 17 years old. They said, "I wish you were more like your friend John." What they meant was, "I wish I could connect with you better. I love you and I wish I could connect." And that's not what I heard. What I heard is they disapproved of me. And that drove me to success, competence, and financial success because I wanted to prove myself and
Right.
earn their love. Okay,
Mm.
when I finally broke through and felt that old wound and released it, that was my first big epiphany. And I describe all that in the book. And I made the connection between cause and effect, the cause of emotional healing and my physical world getting better. So that was a real big one. And then recently, just just a little over a year ago, I got in touch with shame. Now, here's what's really funny. What's really ironic is I had shame about my own shame. And so I avoided it. And as men, as men, we're taught not to have shame, not we're just going to plow through everything. And so that was a big epiphany for me. And so that's the biggest learning was to see the actual results in my physical world from my personal release. And then blame is another big one. I grew up in an environment, in a world where we just blame people when there's a problem. It's never my fault. When I'm 4 years old, that worked really well. I could just make some noise and somebody took care of me. When I was 14 years old, it kind of worked. But when I turned 24, nobody wanted to hear me complain or me to blame. And that did not give me the ability to take charge of my own life. And still
Right.
today, sometimes I fall back to blaming. Oh, this out here, this is the problem. It's never outside. It's always internal.
Yeah. Well, have you actually, this discussion reminds me a bit of what is his name? Chris Duncan. I don't know if you are familiar with him. He's from Australia. He wrote a book called You're Not Broken. But it in business, it's almost like the emotional world. If you're not realizing, like especially the first story, that you shared with us, it's like you're becoming successful, but with the wrong energy. with
Correct.
and so you're not as successful as if that was dealt with. Then you're actually able to, because you're trying to solve a problem that isn't the real problem of the business, right? So it's like you're not aligned to the best of the business because you're busy with yourself in a sense.
And look at Herb Keller from Southwest Airlines. When he was alive, he was all about the people, acknowledgement, contribution, sense of family and belonging. And
Yeah.
he built an amazing airlines with
Right.
that approach. Now, still, there was financial statements, there was marketing budgets, there was training, all those things still existed. But that personal touch and that sense of family that existed within the airlines, that's what took him to a place of success.
Right.
And for me, when I was younger, I thought, well, I can't be compassionate and be respected. And as I said, that's not true. When I am centered in myself from a place of understanding I'm my soul, I'm my spirit. I'm bigger than my mind, I'm bigger than my body. And love is really powerful. When I get to that place of understanding that we are bigger than our external bodies, and I interact with the soul within people, like I'm speaking to you person to person, and we're having a caring conversation. This isn't just casual. This is relatively deep. We're not, it's not aggressive, but it's deep. So when I can approach the people I work with, whether it's managers, my boss, people I lead, and I can just be open and I can have a caring conversation and know that we are both bigger than our human component. And
Mhm.
we're both here to learn and to grow and to have this beautiful experience of human interaction. And I look for the beauty of the spirit in every human interaction, including and especially in business interactions, then I attract the right people. It's a transition. People who don't belong have to leave. The vendors and customers who don't belong and they're not in the vibration of compassion and caring and cooperation, they have to leave. But the wonderful thing is, when we hold that space of caring and compassion and seeing the God and the love and the light in the other people that we're interacting with, that attracts beautiful replacements for the people and the organizations that did not belong, and the right people and the right organizations come along.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It's because it's exposed and it's natural, right? I mean, even the people who need to move on, it's probably in their interest to move on. You know,
To
it's
someplace they're more comfortable. So if the energy gets higher and higher, people who want to complain, people who are stuck in their misery because that's their life experience, let them have that life experience. I'm not here to change them, but let them move on with respect, and they'll find some place they feel more comfortable, and let them have that experience, and just know and trust the right person will replace them. Now, I've hired a couple thousand people in my lifetime, and when somebody leaves, like a really, really important position, a key position I'm dependent on, scared me at first. But as I went through it 2 or 3 times, then I just know the universe, and I say God, but people can call it whatever they want, whatever's bigger than us.
Yeah.
It's bigger, whatever's bigger than us that guides this amazing human experiment. When I trusted somebody better is going to come along for the situation, for the job, for the position, every single time somebody better came along, a better customer, a better employee, a better bookkeeper, a better whoever it was, a better supplier. And that was my faith, because I just, at first it was a guess, first it was hope. And then as it happened more and more, my faith grew. And as my faith grew, then the universe said, oh, you believe in me? You ready for me to help you? Okay, I'm here, I'll help you. But that was scary to go down that path when I was in my 20s and everything I owned was in my business. And if my business failed, I had to start over from nothing and I failed. That was scary. But somehow I found the faith and I tried it and I experimented and my faith grew. And every time I was rewarded, my faith was rewarded when my focus was on what is best for everybody involved. And I showed up from a place of love and caring, and the answers came to me.
Interesting, yeah. I think there's a definite parallel now that we're talking about this, that I can see. You know, I had a time in my business when everything was becoming, you know, technology, right? You had to have the website that showed all the programs and the courses and all this. And I had a wonderful person, you know, helping to do all this. And through something that was personal to her experience, didn't have anything directly to do with me, but she was gone. She did, that was it. No warning. And I found myself a whole month sitting in front of a computer facing the monster I never wanted to see. I didn't want to learn any of that stuff, none of it. You know, I was happy being the teacher and, you know, creating the courses and all of that power and teaching them, but not doing the technology. Anyway, so I was a huge learning curve, but like you said, after that, the right person came, and I was able to be clearer in my instructions because I actually understood the system, right? And so then I thought, okay, this is fantastic, until I found absolutely the best person, and she's still with me, you know, who she understood that I wanted to understand all of it, and to stay there. But until it's like, okay, I can now relax because we've created that dynamic where, you know, I know she knows what she's doing. And, you know, I can still ask sometimes questions that provoke, you know, new discussions, but it's really like felt like the path I had to go through, you know, and it's,
So our
yeah.
souls choose those experiences for us. So we have free will. Our personality has free will and can make choice. Those choices can be overridden by our soul's path for us and our soul's goals. And those can be overridden by God as to what's best for everyone involved. So when we have a detour on a trip, and I talk about this, I actually use this example in the book, a detour on a trip, then we're not happy about the detour in the moment because our personality doesn't know all the choices our soul has made. But once we surrender to it and we say, okay, I have to take this detour, I'm gonna make the best of it. We learn what we need to learn. The surrender helps us get through sooner. And then we get the lesson and we say, oh, now it all makes sense. But that's just part of being human, is things aren't always easy because they're not supposed to always be easy.
Right. I think I'm going to leave it where time is up, but that's such a perfect message at the end. I think I'm going to leave you with that message. And again, the name of your book, one more time.
The name of the book is The Third Element.
Okay.
And I don't know if I got it in the camera right there or not. The Third Element. And it's available through my website at randylyman.com. It's RANDYLYMAN.com. There's a link for the book, for some free offers, for some how-tos, and it's all about helping everybody out there find a way to have more faith and hope and take more chances and risks on doing good for themselves and everyone around them.
Well, thanks very much for sharing your time with us.
You're welcome, Manon. This has been wonderful. Thank you for having me on.
So in this interview, what was very interesting to me is that the way that you look at healing, for example, is very similar to how this man looked at business. It's like, it's not necessarily easy. It's not necessarily the path, you would choose at one point or another. But if you surrender to it, you go with it, you allow it to take place, and you stay connected to your heart, and in the faith that you're doing everything that you can in that direction, things tend to work out. So I always find it so fascinating to have these parallels between business and healing, because I've taken so many business classes, um, just because they have the structure and all that. And in healing, it's much less structured, but there's really parallels that you can pull from both. And then another thing too to notice is that there's it's also relationship based. So you work with people in your organization the same way you work with clients. If a client is not into taking a bunch of pills, then don't go the pill way. There are other ways, other therapies, other approaches, many doors to healing. So pick something that is better suited to that individual. And another parallel too is not every patient is the right patient for you, right? So sometimes you need to say, I remember a case where somebody desperately wanted to see me. They had heard about my reputation. And when they came in during the interview, I realized that the chiropractor that they were seeing at the time was really helping their condition. They just wanted to jump ahead and do something that they had seen through a friend of theirs have a wonderful effect, which is, Bowen therapy. But I said to that patient, I said, I'm not comfortable seeing you right now because you're in the process of getting a treatment, and it looks like your body is in agreement with it and you're going in the right direction of healing. So why don't we just wait and see this through? If you end up, completely healed, well, fantastic. That's great. If there really is a stagnation or you're not going anywhere, then let's start, and we can work together, and we'll try a different approach, different therapy, and see how you do with that. But let's not mix the two. More is not better. Mixing is not better. Let's actually see how things evolve. So sometimes, therefore, saying no to a client or to a patient is important if it makes sense. If it doesn't feel like it's right for whatever reason. I mean, share your reason ideally, but I think that level of transparency is really important. All right, so those are my comments for today on the interview I just had with Randy Lyman. Thank you for joining us at the Healers Café. If you haven't already done so, please like, comment, and subscribe with notifications on, as I post a new podcast every Wednesday with tons of useful information and tips for natural healing that you won't want to miss.